The issue of energy is a sort of a universal issue to some extent, whether it's powering your toaster or your car or heating your building or business or whatever you need to do. All these things need energy in some shape or form, and it's a complex mix of activities. And when you move to an island environment, it's often an even more complex mix. The basis of the data and information which is behind this exercise today is in the Islay Energy Systems option appraisal, which is a document that was issued, I think, to people who came onto this call. Or if not, you can go on the Local Energy Scotland website and see that report, which essentially explains much about the energy issues now and where the energy comes from and what the options are as to how things move forward. You can see from this slide that we have now that fuel oil is a very significant contributor to how energy is used and utilised and produced on Islay. In terms of policy opportunities and issues that the island will have to deal with over the longer term, there's the high level one. There are many definitions in many ways of the Scottish Government's ambition to get to net zero emissions by 2045. The distilleries might have their own different targets, different business arrangements, different issues. And as more different forms of energy become available on Islay, it may well be that some of the energy fuels which are used now become less available over time as you move through those situations. So it's a dynamic situation. There will need to be a change in that situation over the long time. So the island will face a changing situation which is possibly more complex than other circumstances. If you go to that Wood report, which Gareth Oakley will deal with in more detail, there are a few high-level points that I think it's appropriate to raise at this stage. The cost of energy on Islay is higher than elsewhere in Scotland in general. The electric power supply is vulnerable to subsidy conditions if the cable goes down. The on-island distribution network, the way that electricity can make its way around the island, is not sufficiently robust to achieve significant renewable energy into the system. The sailing issues can affect the capacity to bring fuel oil onto the island. And then obviously there's a vehicle issue about moving around the island with that. And the basic issue of fossil fuel availability on the island over the long term. As I said, all these points are in the Wood report, and there's a very good executive summary of that report. We clearly haven't landed here from nowhere. There's been a lot of work done on these issues. These are known problems for a long period of time, whether it's been done by the Islay Energy Trust or the distilleries directly or HIU, Argyll and Bute Council. We haven't just arrived from nowhere in these circumstances. It's been a long journey to this place. But this is probably slightly different. And this event today has a genesis in the Emerging Rural Growth Deal, which was signed as a heads of terms on the 11th of February between Argyll and Bute Council, the UK government and the Scottish government. That is a deal which I think the Minister will speak more about, but essentially looks at 50 million of contribution, 50 million pounds of contributions from the UK and Scottish government, and then 20 million from Argyll and Bute Council with its stakeholder partners in total. I think the important issue about this is in the next 1 to 2 years, the business cases for various parts of that deal need to be developed and sort of resolved. And within the heads of terms, there is a specific section on creating low carbon economy, and in paragraph 16 to 18, it talks about Islay expressly as part of that process. This is information which is on the Argyll and Bute Council website in terms of the process, and a copy of the heads of terms is available in that location. But this means there's a sort of hypothetical situation where there is money that is available to come in a particular way, shape or form. And therefore this event today is a key part of the process to understand, obtain better awareness and move towards a strategic ambition so far as that deal is concerned. So this is the start of the process. It doesn't mean that it will supplant other very well-meaning and good activities that are going on, but it will help move towards a strategy, proposals, business cases, funding, implementation, and those principles as we go along this pathway. So that's the sort of exercise that we're contemplating at this stage in the process. So we have 4 speakers this afternoon who are going to talk specifically about these matters. The first one is going to be the Minister, Paul Wheelhouse, who's going to speak. I will keep an eye on all the other speakers have arrived, and I will try and keep an eye as best I can on his arrival. I'm sure there's lots of things going on at Holyrood this week, which will mean he will be here at some point. The second issue we want to talk about is why energy is important for Ireland. George Dean, who's the director of our Energy Trust, will speak about that and speak to it from a very local and specific and particular point of view. And they speak for about 10 minutes. I'll see what questions I might ask, and if anybody sends me any questions in the chat, I'll look at those questions and see whether I can amalgamate them and deal with those issues. The third speaker is AJ Cunningham, who's going to talk about it from a distillery perspective, because we understand the distillers do require significant energy, and they have their own challenges which they need to deal with from a commercial perspective, having regard to the broader community and collaborating with the community as they go through things. And then finally, Gareth Oakley, who's written Isla's future energy system, needs to look at the key challenges and constraints. And again, we'll go through